Welcome to the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. My name is Katie Dodd, and I'm a nutrition entrepreneur. I spent 7 years as a side hustler before diving into entrepreneurship full time. Before making the leap, I was bringing in 6 figures through my side hustle. If I can do it, you can too. This podcast is for dietitians, interns, and students who want to be inspired to start or perfect the side hustle of their dreams. Let's do this. Hello and welcome to the 256th episode of the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast, Reclaim Your Focus. Now, if you are a regular listener of the podcast, the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast, you likely know that new episodes drop every Wednesday. Now, this episode is being recorded on Thursday night. I got a message from my VA. She actually sent the message yesterday. I saw it today, and then I've been busy. Finally had a chance to record this episode. And what she said was, "Hey, Katie, I don't see a podcast episode." And when I saw her message, I'm like, oh, shoot, that's because I didn't do one. I completely forgot. I completely forgot to record a podcast episode. And then I was thinking about, well, what am I going to talk about today? I'm like, I'm going to talk about focus because this is a really good example. And I've got a story that I could share about where my focus has been lately, but then also on how we can reclaim our focus. Now, you may have heard that quote. I feel like all of us have heard it at some point. Where focus goes, energy flows. Where focus goes, energy flows. So the question is, what are we focusing on? I like to give this analogy and think of a camera. Now, most of us aren't using like an old school camera that has like that little focus section. So a lot of us are using our phones. Depending on the type of phone you're using, there's usually like a little circle or something you could push on and you can choose what to focus on. So if I am taking a picture in the background, maybe there's like a tree and it's zooming in on this tree. I'm like, no, I want to take a picture of those people. So I touch the people and all of a sudden it shifts the focus on those people and makes everything else behind it blurry. Right? I'm sure you guys have taken pictures, played with those features before on your phone, either intentionally or unintentionally. But this analogy of a camera where our focus is so relevant to life, because when we think of things in our life, we're focusing on one thing and we often don't see all the other things around it, right? They get kind of fuzzy. So let me tell you a little bit of my backstory and where my focus has been in the last month. And my focus has been on pain. Pain, physical pain, and it has been so frustrating. So I'm going to share some of my tales of woe, and it's going to pull around to business. I promise you that. But I've had migraines for so much of my life. Really, after I had kids, my mom had migraines. Pretty much my pattern of migraines is following her pattern. And at first, I could take ibuprofen, no big deal. Then it stopped working. Then I started taking Excedrin migraine. Totally fine. But then it stopped working. And in more recent years, my migraines have just been getting worse and worse to where, me and my doctor, we have regular conversations about migraines. And at the beginning of this year, I started tracking my migraines. I got like an Aura ring to help track all of my health features. I've just been on this real big health journey. And my migraines, we found a medication. It made me sicker than a migraine. So I'm like, well, that won't work because like I don't have a migraine, but I still can't get out of bed. And then we tried another migraine and that kind of worked, but it was like the migraines were coming back and actually lasting longer. So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is I've had migraines for a long time, but they've been getting worse and worse. They've been getting worse in intensity. They've been getting more frequent and they've been lasting longer. Before, if I had a migraine, I knew by the end of the day or by the next day, I'd be fine. Then they started lasting 2 days. And now I'm in a season of 3-day migraines that are completely debilitating. And really, I think where kind of all this started was a couple days before Mother's Day. I got a migraine. Okay, next day, still got a migraine. Here we are, day 3 of migraine, and it's Mother's Day. And the pain was so debilitating, I was actually crying. And I've never cried because of a migraine pain before. Like it was hurting so bad. There was no alleviation, it hurt so bad. I was just crying. And I remember my son, he woke up and he walks down the hallway to come tell me, Happy Mother's Day, Mom. And I'm just walking down the hallway to my room and I'm just weeping. And I'm like, this is not good. Like, this is not good. 2 weeks later, I had another cluster of migraines that lasted 3 days. And this is when I was in Florida in my happy place with the very last time that I was at the Smart Success Healthcare Inner Circle, this group that I've been a part of for many years. And I typically don't get migraines there, but I had migraines. I took my medication. They came back 3 days and it was very frustrating. No crying that time. But then I get home 2 weeks later, I get another cluster of migraines. And this one is so incredibly painful that I'm like, do I have to go to the hospital? Like, what is wrong with me? Now, at that point, I will say I scheduled an appointment with the doctor. I actually did see my doctor today. We're trying new medication. I'm getting a referral to a specialist. We're doing all the things. We're doing all the things right. But migraine pain has been taking a lot of my focus. I mean, they've gotten so debilitating. It's like that's all I could focus on. I literally can't do anything. And I hate canceling on people. I hate canceling calls, rescheduling things, and I've just had to. It's really frustrating when you just can't show up. I've had 7 days in the last month that I was down with migraines. I'm like, that's not okay. So, as if these migraines weren't bad enough, I also had a little incident where I just decided to sprain my lower back. I was doing some yard work. My lower back was hurting, and I should have stopped, and I didn't stop because I only had so much time to do the things that I had to do. And I pushed through the pain. And what happened is I tore some ligaments in my lower spine. And then at that point, I was like, okay, now I got to stop going to the gym that I go to for 30 days. I had to be on rest. I had to start a pack of it's like a 5-day pack of steroids. I started physical therapy, and that pain, let's talk about that pain. And some of you are like, yes, Katie, I experience all the pain. But for me, I generally don't struggle with pain. I feel like my biggest pain has been like emotional, mental health stuff. And my mental health right now is like on point. And now it's like, okay, my mental health is really good. And now my body is just like pain, pain. so this migraine pain that's becoming really debilitating, and then back pain. Holy cow. I had no idea how much I used my back until I could not. It hurt to lean forward, and I had no idea how much I leaned forward. It hurt to get down and stand up. It even hurt just laying in bed. And it was just like, everything hurts. This is agony. I can't sleep. How do people live with back pain? So I was very lucky that it was, an acute episode, and physical therapy, and the steroid taper that I was on knocked it out, and I'm doing much better. I mean, I did like 4 sessions, I think, of PT, and then I just got discharged actually this Monday. So, again, my focus is on pain and health right now. And, every day doing my PT exercises. And then really from here on out, I'm going to continue to be doing these because I'm not going to be someone with recurring back pain because that was horrible. But that took a lot of my focus. So then, last weekend, the back of my throat was bugging me for about a week. One of my tonsils was inflamed. It was like it wasn't like the other one. There was something going on, and I was kind of ignoring it because I'm like, I'm just not going to talk about this pain, and it will go away. And then for about 3 days, it was getting worse and worse. It was starting to hurt to swallow, and then I got to this point where I'm like, the outside of my throat hurts. There's radiating pain through my teeth. And again, I can't sleep because of pain. And honestly, I mean, this is all in a month period. And from the Mother's Day weeping, just over a month from the Mother's Day weeping, getting attacked with 3 migraine clusters, spraining my back, and then now this tonsil thing, I was so upset. I went to urgent care, got on steroids. I'm sure I've taken steroids in my life, but I really can't remember when. But in the last month, I've been on steroids twice. So, anyways, luckily the steroids knocked out that pain. It got better, went away. But all that to say, my focus has been on pain recently. And when we look at all the other things going on in life, it's just really been on that pain. And so this kind of pulls around to, why did this episode not get aired? It's because right now I am checking the list of the things that I have to do with business, but some things are falling off. Like, for example, getting this podcast out because of where my focus is on. And my focus is not just on the pain. Because let me rephrase that. If any of you have struggled with anything in life, like when you get things that hit you one after another, like, I'll just say for me, I get very dramatic to where like I was at the point where everything was just pushing me over the edge. I'm like, everything is like, are you kidding me? What's going to happen now? I would stub my toe and be dramatically like, of course I stubbed my toe. Everything sucks. Of course my toe hurts now. Everything hurts, because that's where my focus was, right? My focus was on the negative of the pain of the things that I was going through. And so any little thing that would come in would just be amplified, right? I mean, my friends who know the Bible, I'm thinking of like, is this what Job experienced? Just that, pain after pain. And I was, again, being dramatic, but it was also very, very real pain. So I know this story, you might be like, how does this relate to business? But it does. It has to do with where your focus is. And my focus was just so much on the pain that I think that there was a lot of things that I was missing really within my control and without my control. But I want you all to be thinking about where your focus goes, your energy flows, because my energy was going to pain. Everything was flowing to that pain. And I will say, probably to the point where, I did reach out to friends and, they were praying for me and really praying and doing other things to help with my pain and helping my focus because pain is real, right? It for sure is real. But when I was so focused on it, I probably was making it worse with my anxiety and my stress and all those things that were dying on top of it. So while this is just an example of me and pain, we could tie this into business too. We could tie this into so many things in life. The question is, what are we focusing on? What are we focusing on that we're just so focused on this one thing that everything else around it seems blurry, that we don't notice those other things? And where this ties into business is it could be you just feel like, I've got no time to do business. It could be like I'm showing up on Instagram every day and I'm not growing and no one's buying my stuff. I'm not making money. It could be focused on the negative. It could be focused on things that aren't going right. It could be focused on failures, things that, like maybe you've done launches, you've put out things and no one's bought. I will say oftentimes we tend to focus on negative. And that's kind of where I'm going with this conversation is like if you're focusing on positive things and you're crushing it, amazing. But when we get into these phases or, different places where we're really focusing on the negative, that's all we could see. All we could see is how this isn't working. I'm failing. This sucks. Things are never going to change. And again, you can see how pain relates to that, right? It's painful. But when we find ourselves focusing on things that don't serve us, things that are holding us back, then there are some things that we can do to reclaim our focus because where your focus goes, your energy flows. And we want our energy to focus or to flow towards productive things that are going to get us out of our little funks. And I'll use that analogy with the pain because again, I was very much focused on pain, very frustrated, very much like, are you kidding me? What now? Can I just sleep through the night? And I will say I was really frustrated because I've really been focused on like my health journey recently, which is actually kind of good because I needed it. And I've really been prioritizing sleep. And I've really been researching a lot, reading books, listening to audiobooks about the benefit of sleep. And then all of a sudden I'm like, well, now I'm not sleeping. Of course I feel horrible. So, anyways, um, oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, reclaiming your focus. So I was just focusing on the negative. But then I had to take a step back and figure out what am I going to focus on? I'm going to focus on things that I can control. Now, I don't know entirely what's going on with my health that's causing all these pain issues, but I do know that there's things that I can do to focus on to reclaim my power in some ways of things that I can do. Some of that looks like going to the doctor for me, right? I scheduled an appointment with a doctor, I scheduled PT, I scheduled ortho. I have another appointment next month or actually next week with more of an alternative health therapist. I've got counseling next week. So I'm using tools of, different healthcare providers in this instance. But I'm also really focused on doing my PT exercises, restoring my back and my health. I'm really focused on learning more about my migraines and how they impact me and how they affect me, and really tracking data that I can give my doctor to help her to give me an accurate diagnosis to finally get some answers and to give the best treatment based on my migraines, which are totally hormonally related, which is what I figured out recently. But I'm also focusing on, again, really working on getting good sleep within my control, moving my body. So for me, that mostly looks like walking, but also my PT exercises and really incorporating a lot of strength that I need to be doing for different deficits I have that really contributed to my lower back issue. But also doing things for me. I've been doing cold plunges, red light therapy, saunas. Like I've been trying so hard to really focus on big picture health, drinking plenty of water, managing my stress, all of these things. So my focus was so much on the pain, but I had to step back and figure out, okay, I could be so focused on this sucks, pain after pain after pain, or take a step back. There are tools available. What can I focus on? Where can I flow my energy to get out of this thing that I am in? I hope that ties it into business. That's where I'm going with this. So I want to talk to you guys about reclaiming your focus. Now, I'm going to give you 3 steps to reclaim your focus. If you're like, yeah, maybe I'm not focusing on something that serves me. Maybe I'm focusing on something negative. Maybe I'm in this negative spiral that I feel like I can never get out of. Maybe I've started side hustle after side hustle and I feel like, man, this isn't working. Or you're just in that negative focus, right? So 3 steps. The first one is awareness. The first one is you have to become aware. Take time to pause and think like, well, wait, what am I focusing? Where is my energy going? What am I flowing to? And we got to figure out, what are you focusing on? So we got to look at, like, the example of the camera. Look at the camera. What did I push? What is zoomed in? What did I, what is really sharp and what around it might be blurry? What am I actually focusing on? So step number one is awareness. And I feel like that can sound so silly, but so many of us go through life and we're just not aware of what we're focusing on, of what we're feeling, of how we're reacting. And even just listening to an episode of it like this and be like, oh, well, wait a minute. Where is my focus going? For business, for personal life? Like, what am I focusing on? Once you're aware, then you can, step number two, step back. Step back and look at the big picture. Look at what you're missing. Because again, when we're so focused on something, we don't see all the other things around it. Like, I was so focused on my pain, I didn't really see, like, okay, there's other things out there. There's resources and tools I could use to actually be on the path to feeling better. I don't just have to have a pity party. I can take action to get the help that I need. So taking a step back, zooming out in that camera, making sure all those things that were blurry are no longer blurry, so that way you could actually see kind of the reality, the truth. I mean, that's kind of what I'm talking about too, because you might be so focused on something negative in business, like, oh, this will never work, but let's take a step back. Let's look at the big picture. Well, maybe I need to really prioritize time to work on the side hustle. Maybe I need to say no to these things in order to say yes to this one thing. Maybe I need a better support system. Maybe I need to actually, get a tool set that's going to show me how to do this thing more effectively, right? So it's becoming aware of what you're focusing on, but then taking a step back and figuring out, what are you missing? What's the big picture here? Then step number three is choose. And this is the cool thing about being a human, is that we get to choose. So you are able to make a mindful choice of what you are going to focus on. So again, you're looking at that camera. You're looking at, okay, the camera's zoom, it's focused on this. This part's all clear. Everything else is fuzzy. I'm going to zoom out, look at the whole picture, and then I'm going to choose what I'm going to zoom in on. I'm going to choose on where my focus is. I am going to reclaim my focus. I'm not going to be controlled by, all these things that tend to take control, often negative things, and I'm going to choose to have control. And going back to my story, that's kind of the journey of what I've been on, of 90 days of pain, of like, okay, got to become aware of, what am I focusing on, and is that serving me? Okay, I'm going to take a step back and look at the big picture. Life doesn't just suck. I'm not always going to be in pain. There are tools and resources available that I could use, and I can find answers, and I can find solutions, and I can get out of this little pain rut. And then I get to choose what I focus on. So I hope that this was helpful. And kind of tying it into that, this really was the reason this episode didn't go live, is I've just, well, where my focus goes, my energy flows. I was focusing on pain, and now I'm focusing on getting out of the pain, but I also need to take the step back and focus on, don't forget to publish your podcast episodes, which actually, that's something that I do, is I do keep a planner, and it's the Get Time Planner, and I'm sure I've talked about it plenty of times on the podcast, and I fill it out every day. But because of pain, when I'm in a dark room with a migraine and agonizing pain and tears, I'm just not gonna do my Get Time Planner. I just haven't been. So then when I'm not doing it, I'm getting behind on stuff. so so anyways, that's my story, and I hope that this was helpful. I hope that this kind of got you to start thinking about, where is your focus, where is your energy going, and take those steps to reclaim your focus, because we know where your focus goes, your energy flows. And I want you to be focusing on the right things. I want you to be focused on things that's going to help them move the needle forward in your business, in your side hustle, in your life. So step number one, become aware. What are you focusing on? Step number two, take a step back. What are you missing? Step number three, you get to choose. Make a mindful choice of what you are going to focus on. So thank you so much for listening to the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. For those of you who are regular listeners and were looking for this episode on Wednesday morning, I am so sorry for the delay, but I am glad that you're listening to it now. I appreciate each and every one of you who listen to the podcast. If you want to learn more about the ways that we can work together, I want you to go to katiedodd.com. This is my Linktree page, and the links always change on it, but this is really opportunities on where we could work together. So thanks so much for listening to the podcast, and I will see you all next week with an episode that hopefully will be released on time. Okay, guys, take care. Bye.